Our goal is to rearm, refuel, and do all the checks necessary to take off again in roughly 15 to 20 minutes on road basis.
Gripen E operates with a new agile architecture system, which allows the aircraft to be upgraded with new tactics and new capabilities seamlessly.
What we designed the system for is actually to be able to withstand the extreme max in terms of cold, so minus 40, minus 45.
10,000 research and manufacturing jobs could land in Canada if Ottawa adds the Swedish fighter jet to its...
Everyone assumed they knew how this story would end. Donald Trump had made it perfectly clear. Buy American, fly American, stay locked inside America's military orbit. For decades, Canada did exactly that. Aging jets, American contracts, American software. American approval required before a single Canadian pilot could test a single system in Canadian skies. The world watched and expected nothing different this time. The F-35 contract seemed inevitable, a formality, a foregone conclusion dressed up as a competition. But then something changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, deliberately. Beneath the suffocating noise of Trump's pressure campaigns and coercive alliance politics, Mark Carney began making moves that nobody inside America's defense establishment saw coming. Moves that were patient, calculated, and dangerous to every assumption Trump had built his military leverage upon. This is not simply a story about a fighter jet. This is a story about sovereignty, about what it truly means to control your own sky, about a middle power that looked at decades of dependency, looked at the architecture of control quietly built around it, and decided finally that enough was enough. For years, Canada's Air Force had been surviving on borrowed time. The CF-18 Hornets, once respected and capable, had aged into relics no longer fit to counter modern threats. Everyone assumed the solution was already decided. Donald Trump's America had spent billions developing the F-35 program. Allies were not simply encouraged to participate, they were pressured. The message from Trump's circle was unmistakable. Buy the F-35, stay inside the system, maintain the chain. Canada, a NATO member woven tightly into American military infrastructure for generations, looked like the safest, most guaranteed customer on the list. That was the assumption. That was Trump's miscalculation. Because deep inside Canada's defense architecture, in rooms that produced no press releases and left no public trail, a completely different conversation had already begun. Whispers, quiet, deliberate, dangerous whispers, about a Scandinavian aircraft built not for empire and projection, but for survival and resilience. The Saab Gripen, a Swedish fighter engineered by a nation that had always planned to fight outnumbered, outgunned, and under maximum pressure. On the surface, the choice seemed almost impossible to justify. Why would Canada, a treaty-bound NATO ally, risk the fury of Donald Trump by selecting a Swedish jet over an American one? The answer, when it finally surfaced through layers of secrecy, was devastatingly simple. Because the Gripen offered something the F-35 was architecturally incapable of providing. True, uncompromised, unconditional independence. Here is what most people were never supposed to understand about the F-35. Purchasing it was never just purchasing an aircraft. It was purchasing a permanent relationship with terms set entirely by one party. Every software upgrade, every weapons integration, every system modification required explicit American approval. Canada would own the jet, but America would control what it could do. This vulnerability was not theoretical. In a real training exercise, Canadian pilots flying their F-18S were forced to wait for American authorization to test specific systems, a minor inconvenience during peacetime, a potentially catastrophic failure point during war. Mark Carney's inner circle absorbed that lesson completely. Canada was not shopping for hardware. Canada was deciding, once and for all, who held the keys to its own sovereign airspace. The Gripen answered that question differently. Sweden's proposal was not a simple commercial pitch. It was a carefully constructed strategic partnership built on a foundation no American contractor had ever offered Canada. Full technology transfer, joint production facilities, Canadian engineers embedded directly alongside Saab's teams, building a version of the Gripen specifically calibrated for Canadian operational requirements. And crucially, once built, Canada would own that capability entirely. modify it without permission, arm it without approval, upgrade it without negotiation. This was the architecture of genuine sovereignty, and it was precisely this architecture that sent shock waves through the defense establishment that had profited from Canada's dependency for decades. The response was immediate, ruthless, and carefully disguised. Lobbyists flooded Canada's political corridors with money and messaging. Articles appeared in major newspapers with suspicious coordination. The Gripen was labeled unproven, too small, too risky, climatically unsuitable for Canada's harsh northern environment. But insiders who reviewed the actual evaluation data understood what was really happening. This was not journalism. This was a professionally organized, heavily funded campaign of strategic misinformation with a single objective: kill the Gripen deal before it could survive. High-ranking officials who had spoken favorably about the deal suddenly faced corruption scandals and mismanagement allegations that materialized with remarkable timing. One by one, public voices of support went silent. Someone was methodically dismantling the Gripen's political foundation from within Canada's own institutions. And still, the deal did not die. Because Mark Carney understood something fundamental that Donald Trump's blunt, coercive approach could never account for. Strategic patience is a more durable weapon than tactical pressure. Every aggressive move Trump's orbit made, every threat of diplomatic consequence, every warning of NATO isolation, quietly accelerated Canada's internal determination. The architecture of coercion was, paradoxically, building the very resolve it was designed to break. Sweden had anticipated this moment with precision. Saab had already developed a Gripen variant engineered for Arctic operational conditions, an environment where the F-35 had demonstrated consistent and well-documented limitations. The Gripen could land on converted highway strips, refuel and rearm within minutes, return to combat with a ground crew small enough to fit inside a single vehicle. For a nation whose vast northern frontier faced daily pressure from Russian long-range bombers, this was not a marketing feature. It was a sovereign necessity. Unlike the F-35's requirement for billion-dollar permanent basing infrastructure, the Gripen was designed for a country that expected to operate under pressure, not from comfort. Canadian pilots who conducted secret evaluation flights returned with assessments that quietly shook the defense community. The Gripen's agility surpassed all expectations. Its radar detected threats the aging CF-18s had never been capable of engaging. Its electronic warfare suite carried capabilities sophisticated enough that certain NATO partners preferred they not be discussed openly. One pilot, speaking only in careful whispers, offered a single sentence that encapsulated everything. If the truth were fully public, the Gripen would win tomorrow. That sentence is the entire story. The Gripen was not eliminated by performance failure. It was suffocated by politics, by billions in sustained lobbying, by the invisible structural weight of decades of dependency, dressed up as alliance solidarity. Intelligence services monitored every communication between Canadian officials and their Swedish counterparts. Internal memos warned of severe diplomatic repercussions if negotiations progressed. A NATO official reportedly delivered the message with deliberate ambiguity. If Canada chose the Gripen, isolation would follow. The evaluations were stretched far beyond any reasonable timeline. Meetings were canceled without explanation. Files containing critical Gripen assessments vanished from government servers. Billions in related contracts were quietly redirected toward American suppliers. The Gripen was never given a genuine competition. It was given a slow, managed, institutionally sanctioned suffocation. This contrast between Trump's method and Carney's response is the sharpest edge of the entire story. Donald Trump operates through volume, through public intimidation, through tariff threats, and the constant spectacle of coercive pressure. Mark Carney operates on an entirely different frequency, through architectural patience, through agreements built in rooms that generate no headlines, through sovereign resolve that does not announce itself until announcement is no longer necessary. One leader governs through chaos and expects submission. The other governs through silence and builds permanent alternatives. Even today, with no formal contract signed, the Gripen's presence in Canada's strategic consciousness has never disappeared. Insiders claim foundational agreements remain intact beneath the surface. that Canadian engineers have continued studying Gripen systems in secured facilities, that Saab left behind more than a sales proposal, blueprints, a quiet promise that the dream of independence was never fully extinguished by the pressure designed to eliminate it. Canada came closer than any ally ever publicly acknowledged to breaking free from the gravitational architecture of American military control. Not through confrontation, not through dramatic rupture, but through calculated, layered, patient sovereign resolve. The kind of resolve that Mark Carney has made the quiet signature of this chapter in Canadian history. And that is precisely why this story was never supposed to reach you. The Gripen deal may remain officially unresolved, but the idea it ignited, that Canada controls its own sky, on its own terms, answering to no one, that idea is alive, and it is not finished. What do you think about all this? Tell us in the comments below. See you in the next one.